Okay. Hi there, good afternoon and welcome to the Small Business Center, and we are very proud to present Nesda. We have Delilah and Bruce here, and they're going to talk about cybersecurity. Kindly, think about questions as they're discussing stuff. We're presenting a situation. Put your question in the chat pod. You know the part. Put it in the chat, and we can discuss it right then and there. This is an interactive workshop. It's 2 hours long. We'll have a wee little break in between, but please feel free to engage with both Delilah and Bruce. I'm going to put it over to Delilah first to talk about cybersecurity, whether it's your small business or your handheld device or just your smartphone. There's always risks. Let's find out how to keep ourselves protected and using this technology to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep. This.
And then your and then slideshow.
Yeah.
Okay. You're in there. Give us a second here. We're just trying to put the slideshow up. There we go. Okay, thank you, Delilah.
Thank you. So welcome everyone. As Tamara said, my name is Delilah Chartrand. The business and HR manager for Nesda Technologies. Sorry, Bruce May, our VP of IT, is also with us today. I'll be doing approximately an hour for the presentation. Bruce will be doing approximately an hour for the presentation. If you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to email our cybersecurity@nesda.ca email address. It will be on a few more slides throughout the presentation for the next couple of hours. I've been with Nesda Technologies for 13 years, and as I'm sure everybody is aware, tech changes constantly. So I love my job because it's continuous learning. You're never bored. And cybersecurity is one of those continuous learning pieces. So what we're talking about today is that security is important for all companies and all people. And I will be touching on how this can impact your personal life as well, how you can be more safe. We're going to talk about just exactly what can be hacked and how, and I'm going to show you some prime examples for password hacking, for example, and a couple other things for how does a hacker get in. Top cybersecurity risks today for SMEs, what's happening in the headlines today, and what do you need to do today. So there are some steps that you can take to make sure that you're more secure, obviously, and there always will be. They'll be ever changing. So just exactly what can be hacked, and this is a little bit of how. So we'll talk about physical access, email, generally that's now called mailbox hijacking. Wireless access points, Wi-Fi, and I've got the comment in there free at the restaurant because just about everybody has connected to somewhere free. Cell phones, multi-factor authentication, SharePoint, websites, social media, everything. If it's technology and if it's got credentials, it can be hacked.
Can I just pause for 1 second? Can we just look back onto the Zoom thing and just see make sure I am recording? Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay, and is it doing the slide presentation recording?
It's recording slideshow is what it's saying.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Nesda.
I'm more used to Teams as opposed to Zoom.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Okay, so again, we're back to just what exactly can be hacked, and we're talking about physical access. So this is probably a piece that's common sense. When you have an issue with your phone, oh, someone else just joined in.
Oh, perfect. We'll do that for like 3 minutes and then stop. We have a lot of work to do with this thing. Orange guy on the bottom.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry, folks, I'm getting there.
Yay.
Okay, so when we're talking about physical access, it's extremely important that if you're having an issue with your phone, Phones and laptops and desktops are generally the pieces of technology that we'll take to somebody else and have them look at it and say, can you tell me what's wrong with it? I'm having a problem. You want to make sure, obviously, that that's a trusted resource that you're bringing it to, because it's very easy when someone has a hold of your hardware to get information. So once they can get in and have access, because you would have to potentially give them access to certain things to be able to fix what might be the problem, but if, again, they're not a trusted resource, they could potentially install scripts. They can install malicious software, and I'm going to talk and show you what Pass Revelator, as an example, and Pass Wi-Fi look like. But what can they get? So, for example, a lot of people use Google Chrome to save their passwords for a lot of different things that they log into. That's not necessarily an issue. The problem is your Google Chrome protected? Is that secure? So you've now handed your device over to somebody, and they could potentially have access to almost everything that you log into. Yikes. Mailbox hijacking. So when we talk about that, this is basically any web-facing mail system. So Microsoft 365, Outlook, and Gmail. How do they get in? Number one, poor password complexity. And this isn't just mailbox hijacking. This is everything. If you have poor passwords, they will be very easy to get into. And if you don't have any multi-factor authentication as well, that's another key piece. What do the hijackers do? Well, what they do is they like to sit silently and monitor it first. They like to just sit there in the inbox. I'm going to give you a prime example when we get to one slide, a real life example that we dealt with. What they like to do is they like to watch to see, okay, what type of emails do you have going back and forth? What type of information are you sharing with people? If you have, for example, e-transfers consistently going through your business, a hijacker can get in there. They can set forwarding rules to forward that e-transfer out to their own email. They'll set up another rule to delete it from your inbox so you don't see it. And then they'll set up a third rule to delete it from the sent items so you never see that it got forwarded out. So wireless access points. COVID, everybody started working from home, or those that could. For those connected through a secure VPN, is that safe? Yes, if it's a secure VPN. The problem is what we're talking about is a lot of people who worked from home just connected to their own home network. Again, not an issue if it's secure, but your wireless access points is a router, and those need firmware updates and security updates done on them. You want to make sure that you've got what's most current and secure. Again, passwords and their complexity. You will hear that phrase constantly throughout this. Do all of your devices have passwords? And the reason why I'm asking that question is if you look at the blue screenshot, so when you attach your, Bruce, help me out here. When you connect your phone to your, when you're connecting for the first time, you're going to see this pop up, and it says, do you want to find PCs, devices, and content on this network? So we're talking about wireless access points, whether it's in the office or whether it's at home, and automatically connect to those devices like printers and TVs. Now it says we recommend that you do this on your home and work networks. Nesda Technologies will tell you we never recommend you do this. The only way to make sure if you're going to click on yes, those other devices you're connecting to had better be secure, period. So what I've done here as well is given a screenshot from a Google search that I just did the last couple of days. And what I searched for was the Bell modem default login and password. All of these devices, such as routers, the wireless access points, you name it, they come with default logins, default credentials. Generally, they're admin. Sometimes there's something different. The point is, those defaults are part of the manual for those models. And all somebody has to do is Google what the default is, right, and they've got your login and password if you haven't changed them from the default. Extremely important to do.
So is that like when you go to shut down your laptop at home and it says, oh, if you're shutting this down, you might be shutting down the other devices within this home? What does that mean?
That would be the other users logged onto this computer, the message received.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you If you've opened, multiple people have signed on to a computer at the same time, you'll get that message.
Or if you're borrowing somebody's wireless, right?
No, this. that
No,
would be
no, it's
computer
specific to the
Specific to
device.
that kind of
Yeah, so if
device.
you've got a daughter who's logged
Right.
in and she hasn't fully signed out, you've switched users,
Right.
she's still signed in if you've just done a switch user.
I see, thank you.
Welcome.
Is it possible for you to share your screen? Because I only see you as a group, but I don't see what you're sharing.
Oh, you're not seeing our slides? Oh my goodness.
Okay, let's figure that out. Hang
Sorry
on.
about that. Thank you for letting us know.
So I think I have to go into. You have to screen share.
Escape was.
Escape, hold on, let's go back one. Escape.
Okay, let me go back down and Zoom. No, think I have to go to, you have to go to
Yeah,
Zoom.
go to Zoom.
Do I, or do I have to go?
No, no Zoom. Yeah, that one. Right, on the right hand side. The green one, share screen. You're going to share the one that says Delilah's presentation. Thank you.
Well, here we are, the technology world.
There we go.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We are recording
in the
this
chat too.
and we're gonna let somebody else in.
Thank you. Now, we're talking about how do we protect our devices? There's so many my system's been hacked a few times. And I've had all the antivirus stuff, and all that. And I'm just wondering if you all have recommendations and experiences with specific products or apps that we should be using to protect our computers and devices.
We do. This whole 2-hour presentation is about how to protect that. Just go to.
Okay.
We'll
Sounds
get to recommendations.
Yeah,
at the
we'll
end.
get to
There'll be specific
recommendations.
Recommendations that'll work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you see can everyone see your screen okay now?
I still see you.
Just me?
Just you as a group. I don't see what you're sharing.
I think that's right. It says you're sharing, screen sharing.
All right, so
Click on,
Okay, I see it now.
Oh, okay,
It's just something I just did. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
thanks, Delilah.
Okay, no, that's all right. I'm glad that they let us know that they couldn't see our slides. Okay, so I had said that free Wi-Fi at the restaurant, and I use the restaurant as the example, but free Wi-Fi is in a lot of different places. Primarily, restaurants do have them. Airports will have them. You name it. Most stores now are starting to do it as well.
It used to be a selling feature. Hey, sit here and have a coffee. We got free Wi-Fi.
Right, yes. So are these connections that you're connecting to, are they password protected? Honestly, it doesn't matter. They're public domain. So 2 things that you need to keep in mind as far as free Wi-Fi is concerned. Again, password protected or not. The man in the middle attacks, what they do, and I'm going to explain that in a little bit more detail in another slide. An attacker can actually intercept the communication between devices. So between your phone and the internet connection, that man in the middle can sit in the middle and get all of your information. If it's your laptop you're working on, same thing. Rogue access points work basically the same way, just slightly different. So an attacker will actually set up their own access point that mimics a legitimate one. And the same thing is happening. Everything that you do, that you browse to, that you log into while you might be sitting there using that free Wi-Fi is now being accessed by the hacker. It gives them access to any site that you browse. Cell phones can also be hacked. So there's something that's called juice jacking. And this is when you're using unknown charging stations. So this is in particular when you are taking your USB cord and you're at the airport and you plug in your USB to charge into an unknown charging stations. I've seen them at lots of conferences. Generally, they'll have a charging area. Restaurants are starting to have them now as well. The problem with this and the way that it works is that if someone can get into that charging station, and it doesn't take a whole lot to do so, they can actually download some malicious software into it. You plug in, and the juice jacking, why they call it that is because all of the juice, all of your data on your phone is now being sucked into their hands. Obviously clicking on malicious links in a message, and that can be either text or email for anybody who uses social media as well. You may get a Facebook Messenger. I am old school, so I am a Facebook user. Unlike the younger crowd, which, they're the Snapchats and the Instagrams of the world. They all work the same way though. They can have malicious text links, sorry, in messages, texting, email. Unknown charging cables. This isn't really talked about a lot, but this does happen. So if you're traveling, for example, and you've forgotten your charging cable at home, my apologies, I just want to go back to the unknown charging stations at the top. Your best bet always is to use your own cord and to use it in a plug and plug that plug into an outlet when you're charging. Bring your own charger. So the unknown charging cables. So again, the example I use is if you're traveling and you've forgotten your charging cable at home. Charging cables have been known to be made with chips in them that actually steal your information when you plug into them. So don't buy the 99-cent or $2.99 charging cable that you came across in, a convenience store or, the gas station, the truck stop on the highway on the way. Pegasus, I'm going to talk about that just briefly, and I'll show some information as to how that works. It's spyware. It's worldwide known, and it's more politically charged. There's a lot of information in the news about this. The thing with this is that with Pegasus, it does require to click on one link initially, but once that's happened, the attacker can actually send you more and more links. Could be by text, could be by email. And now that Pegasus is there, it will open those links on its own. Oops. So the first click that you let it in, every other link that comes in no longer need to be clicked on. So cell phones through Wi-Fi. Again, we talked about wireless access points, free Wi-Fi. Eavesdropping will happen, the man in the middle attacks I mentioned. And all of this is about collecting your personal information and just what can they use. SIM swapping, this is another one. Again, this doesn't seem to be so much in the news, but that's primarily because there's so many other attacks coming out now, or different types of attacks that we're hearing about, that this one seems to kind of have gone into the shadows. It does still happen though. So what this actually is a attacker calls up your mobile carrier pretending to be you and says, I have a new SIM card and I need you to activate it for me. So everything on your current SIM card is now on that SIM card and you're deactivated. So multi-factor authentication. We have been talking about this for a very long time, making sure that you have MFA on everything that you do. This can be hacked as well. This is extremely important to pay attention to because you need to have the right MFA set up. This happens the same way with the man in the middle. It's intercepting communications. That's all it is. Phishing attacks. We always hear phishing attacks. And for those of you who, frankly, I'm tired of the word, it's an email that comes in with a malicious link. That's what it is. It's a malicious link. MFA fatigue. Bruce is going to talk in a little bit more detail about how that works. And I'm going to give you a prime example again of somebody who came to us and this exact case happened to them, but I'll get to that in a minute. SharePoint or OneDrive. They're great systems to use. But access again is gained through poor password complexity, which you will hear 1,000 times in the next 2 hours.
I've written it down.
Tricking the user in allowing third-party OAuth apps. So this is actually sending somebody a text or an email that looks so real. And what an OAuth app does is it actually takes your your login credentials and your password, and it shoots it out to the server you're trying to connect, and it tells the server, I'm legitimate. The problem is that if it's a third party and it's a hacker, it's not going to the server you're trying to go to. It's now being fed to the hacker. Hijacking the web session of a logged in user. Again, same thing. If someone's logged in, poor password complexity, they can get in. Another key piece to remember with SharePoint and OneDrive is configurations. So when you share files, you share data, you share your vacation video that you took, if you've not configured that properly and it's left open to the world, everyone can get at your data. It has to be configured properly. You need to make sure you're closing doors that don't need to be open. Websites. Brute force attacks, man in the middle, I've already talked about. I am going to show you 2 prime examples of how those work. Keyloggers, I will show you a prime example of how that works. A keylogger is, again, it's generally a malicious link that you're going to click on, completely unaware that it shouldn't be. And keyloggers, once they're installed, they log every keystroke you make. Everyone. If you type ACDF, it sees ACDF, everything. SQL injections, that's malicious code that actually gets injected and infects the server, so it now attacks the visitors to your website.
Wow.
Cross-site scripting, that's actually multi-layer. There are different things that fall under cross-site scripting, but in the case of a website, this is where a hacker would install a keylogger, exact same thing, so they can see everything that's being logged or keyed. Cookie information. I'm sure everybody's seeing now that you have to click on accept cookies or decline cookies for almost every website we go to. Legitimate businesses they're not storing your information. They're not selling your information. But how often do we actually read when we click yes, what their cookie terms are? What information are they storing about us? What information could they potentially be selling and to who? We don't read them. We just move on.
Are the cookies advancing or enhancing the experience in that website? Are they necessary? Like, if you just say no and carry on, you're a bit safer? It's not really.
You?
It's coming that way. A cookie is a small enough information set that it helps the web server remember you. So you remember preferences. So go to CBC News, something like that. It'll remember your weather preferences, be Fahrenheit or Celsius for temperature, things like that. Cookies are small enough, and they're on your computer. You share them with the server. They're small enough not to contain any personal information, but just customization information for your experience with the website. So they're fairly harmless.
Yes.
But you don't have to accept them.
You can still move along and generally use the website.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
Yes, thank you, Bruce. Bruce is my backup. I'm the non-technical person. So again, software vulnerabilities is another issue with websites, and we see this a lot with WordPress developed websites. WordPress consistently needs updates, and WordPress isn't the only one. Whatever platform your website is built on, it needs to be updated, and you can always be guaranteed there's going to be some kind of a bug, and they've now sent out a security update that needs to be done. At a minimum, it's to keep it current with the technology for the browsers so that it displays properly.
That's clear.
Social media. Again, I'm old school, I'm Facebook, and you want to make sure that you are reviewing your privacy settings often. You want to make sure your password is complex. See, that sounds familiar. Keep private information private, names, dates, geotagging. So geotagging is when you have your location services turned on your phone, and you do that through your settings. And a lot of people don't even know that it's turned on. Or let's say you use Google Maps and it says you need to turn on your settings so that Google Maps can help you get to wherever you need to go. You turn it on, you forget to turn it off, you're out somewhere, you're taking pictures, you're posting those pictures. As soon as those pictures are posted, that picture stores exactly where you are right at that moment. So it knows where you are, where you've been. Pictures can follow you. The other thing to keep in mind is it really is, I've seen so much of this. The kids all just started school this past week. I'm seeing parents posting, Donnie Jr. just started kindergarten at this school. You know, my big boy, 5-year-old, you've now given away what your child's name is, what year they were born, and
what he looks like. Yeah.
what he looks like. That's scary enough on its own.
But
At what school? But a lot of people will use their kids and their kids' birth dates as passwords. So you've just given away half of the information that somebody needs to get into your logins.
And innocently enough, right? Like, we're
Well,
so comfortable with
and
social
that's-
media, thinking like, oh, it's social media. It's like walking next door and talking to the neighbor. And once the conversation's done, it's done. But When it's over the internet, it's never done.
No, and it doesn't allow for anonymity the way that it used to.
Mm.
And people, I think, got into the habit of being able to be anonymous. The other thing is on Facebook, I know you can go in and you can log out of all sessions. There's a spot where you can go in there, and I'm not sure how Instagram works. I haven't used it enough. Twitter, I'm sure that they all do the same thing. But you can go into Facebook specifically and it will show you everywhere you're logged in. So for example, my laptop at home, my current phone, maybe my desktop, because I do some social media Facebook stuff for work. So it'll tell me all 3 devices that I'm logged in on. If I see a 4th one, log out of all, change your password and log back in. It's easy to know if someone's gotten into your account. Having said that, anyway, MFA wherever possible, we want to make sure that we're using multi-factor authentication as well. So, yes, everything can be hacked. One of the articles that I'm going to discuss is, it blows your mind. Why would somebody even want to hack this? But as we get further into the story, you understand why. So a couple of examples that I've given here is something, again, that still does happen, but it seems to have kind of quietened in the news because bigger and better attacks are happening now. What that was, so for example, I'm here for a presentation and I've got a USB, it's not a USB, I've got a USB stick in my hand and I just set it over here and I'm done and I walk out for the day. And Sarah walks over and says, oh, somebody left this behind. I wonder who it was. Oh, look at that. It's 1 terabyte. I love the size of that USB stick. I could really use one of those. Stick it into your computer and guess what? It was a hacker that put something on that USB stick that's now on your device, and worse, either your home network or your work network. And it's out there. Unsubscribe. Everybody sees unsubscribe emails in their mailbox. For the first while, I would say I started unsubscribing, but now with the fear of links and what's in them, I don't even bother. For years, I have not touched an unsubscribe. I just delete. It gets onerous because of how much junk we end up in our mailboxes.
You're in control then.
You're in control.
That's what block senders for.
Pardon me?
That's what block senders for.
You've got the option to block sender as well, in your mail, and I don't believe that it matters what mail platform you use. You have the option to do that. The other thing is to remember as well that when you're deleting something from your inbox, it hasn't disappeared. It's sitting in your deleted items. So delete it from there too, and you'll get the prompt, do you want to permanently delete this? And you say yes.
A lot of small business owners use Outlook as their database.
Mhm.
And so when they delete an email or whatever, and they're like, okay, but they don't ever clean the delete file.
Right, yeah.
Because it's a database, right?
It's
scary, that's scary.
It's a junk holder of malicious stuff that should not be sitting there.
Right.
Okay, so some of the top risks that we're going to talk about, this is key because you think you're not vulnerable. And I say that specifically to small and medium-sized business. The attitude is generally, the business that I do, nobody cares about, right? It's boring. I don't do a lot of e-commerce type things. So why would I worry about that? That is the key piece. Password hacking. Again, poor password complexity. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Phishing AI improved. This gets really interesting. We're going to touch it on AI. Malware. I'm going to explain to you what malware is. A Microsoft technician calling you. This does still happen. It just happened 10 days ago. We got a phone call.
I bought a new little laptop and in 3 days I had a Microsoft technician calling me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know this is wrong. And I just shut it off and brought it back to the source. I'm like, turn it off, take him away.
Exactly. So physical access again, and then we've got it. This is how to, and we're going to talk about what Wi-Fi map is and what it does. Password spraying, brute force hacking, man in the middle, and keyloggers. I have already said I'm going to give you prime examples. You will see exactly what those things look like.
Thank you.
Okay, so a couple of real life stories. These are all clients who came to us with some serious problems. Sales agent, sole proprietor. Who would have thought a single person, it's not a big company, they don't have 100 employees to train to not click on things. Their mailbox had been hijacked. The hijacker had gone in and set some rules up in regards to e-transfers to the tune of $50,000. And Bruce is going to touch on this.
I'm gonna tear this one down.
Yeah, okay. So again, this is what they do is they set up a rule to transfer something out, so it goes to the hacker's mailbox. Then they set up a rule, delete it from the inbox of the real user, delete it from the sent item, so it doesn't look like it was forwarded out. So they cover their tracks. They're very good at what they do once they get into a mailbox, particularly if there's money involved. This hijacker sat in that mailbox for 18 months. That was as far back as we could do the forensics on without this person knowing.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Gets
So-
worse, but that's part of my show.
Yeah. The communications company, again, it's 15 employees, it's not a huge company. They actually had ports that were open from the outside and no VPN connection. So it was easy for anybody to get in. Poor password complexity, go figure. Common admin passwords across all computers. And Bruce is going to touch on administrative logins and the fear of those. And finally, they had saved a list of all their logins and passwords for everything in an unsecured file on their server. That's just a wide open door to not only their data, but everything they connect to outside of their world too. The
That makes
professional
me
firm. Sorry?
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
When I hear all of that, to be honest with you, I've been hacked a couple of times and almost had my ID stolen. I've been on top of it, but I'm at the point now where I'd really like to just go back to pen and paper and forget the whole computer thing.
I'm all for it.
Yes,
Old school.
yeah,
We'll talk about that with your passwords when we get to that as well.
yes, it's,
Okay.
it's a fear, right? And I'm going to talk about some predictions that some tech companies are making, and we'll touch on that a little bit as well. It's called zero trust, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the professional firm, I have 2-tier written there. So they have 10 employees, I'll say kind of at an admin level, and then 10 employees that would be more at the professional level. All 10 employees at the admin level had the exact same password. All 10 employees at the professional level had the exact same password. This is for their mailboxes
And their Windows logins.
and their Windows logins.
Yikes.
So what ended up happening, they actually had a on-premise Exchange email server. So they managed their own email with that on-premise box. So this is no longer a mailbox hijacking, it's a mail server hijacking. And the damage that was caused by this was horrendous. They're just starting to get out from underneath it now.
You shut your business down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The manufacturing plant, 30 employees, again, not a huge manufacturer. So this refers to MFA fatigue. And what ended up happening with this user, I don't know, they were sitting out on their deck having a beer or sitting at the dinner table or something, but they had their phone with them, and they had, for those of you who use MFA already, it prompts you on your phone to say, I'm trying to log in. Is it you? And do you accept me logging into this device? Because they were nowhere near their computer, they clicked decline. They thought, oh, that's weird. I hope somebody's not trying to get in. They got the prompt again. They hit decline again. Then the hacker just hammered over and over and over again for them to accept or decline. Finally, they went, I wonder if my MFA just isn't working properly, and they hit accept. And they just let the person in. So that's generally what we call MFA fatigue. That and the fact that, is it onerous every time you go to log into something? Yes. Does it help to keep you more secure? It does.
100%.
So the seasonal business, 5 full-time employees throughout their season that they're busiest. They do have several other kind of casual on-call employees throughout the year. Their backups were attached to their network, which makes your backups useless, right? So when you're doing, when we were doing the forensics on this particular case and how did it happen, we believe that there was an open port on the network, and sometimes it can be extremely difficult to get to the actual root source because of encryption, or they've just been in the device for so long, the hacker's been in there for so long. And also, when you're looking at a network that has multiple holes from a security perspective, it's really hard to figure out which one thing prompted the hack to happen. Everything on their network got encrypted, which means that their backups were encrypted as well. So again, the backups, they were useless. There was just no point in having them. So we talk about the word network, but I want you to remember, network is your home network. That's your wireless access point. It's your Wi-Fi connections. Network is your work network. Same thing as home. They both need to be secure. If it's just you as a sole proprietor working from home, are you secure? How many other devices are connected to your wireless access point that has an open door on it, that has no password, or the password complexity isn't strong enough?
How do we check that?
Check what?
Good, I'll show you that.
Okay, Bruce is gonna do
Okay,
it. Okay,
Bruce will get there.
I'm getting all keen now. I wanna make sure I'm password complexity perfect.
So password hacking, there will be an example to follow for exactly how this happens. Phishing, AI improved. So this one's really interesting. I find it interesting. We keep hearing about AI, and I just want to go back to phishing. Phishing is an email or a text that is sent to you with malicious intent with a link in it. That's all phishing is. We keep talking about it, but nobody actually truly says this is what it is. So I know for us at Nesda, we talk about AI, and it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'll tell you, we generally end up in the ugly section. Well, we don't, AI does. Tech industry leaders, I have a note here that says they want it slowed. And unfortunately, my apologies, I did not cite my source here. I think it was from the Forbes article that I'm going to speak about in just one moment. They're not only looking for this to be slowed down, they want it stopped, because they're recognizing fully the chaos that AI can cause in our lives. So the Forbes article actually referred to how AI mimics humans to fool humans. It's also used, this is really interesting, it's also used to garner information before even receiving a phishing attempt. What that does, or what that means, AI has been created. Maybe you're using it. Some people have used ChatGPT. Crazy. That AI is already finding a way to build the best phishing attempt that will fool you to click on the link.
Of course.
Then it sends you the AI link that's got the phishing attempt in it. So it's getting stronger, and it's getting smarter, and it's getting more dangerous. So here's a really good example of a very poorly written phishing attempt. We know it's poorly written because the email address, for example, it's supposed to be Canada Post. Clearly, that's not an email address that Canada Post would use. They've got a Word document attached to it. Canada Post would never send Word. I think most companies generally don't send Word documents. There's spelling errors, there's grammatical errors, something even as simple as if you look down near the bottom, the line that's got the red arrow coming in from the right-hand side, if the package isn't going to be obtained within 24 hours, well, the 20 has the capital T, the 4 does not. That's a key piece that tells you this is just not written properly. There's no way that this is a legitimate email. Delete from your inbox, go into your deleted items and delete it from there. Excuse me.
Yeah, I love it when they copy the logo of the company they're pretending they are, and you're like, oh, it must be all right.
Right. So although this one is not, this particular example is, it's definitely not AI because it was we don't believe it to be AI anyway.
AI.
It's much better written, excuse me, than the first one. The email address it's coming from is email@netflix.ssl.com. It's only giving you a little bit of urgency to it. It's not saying that anything really bad is going to happen. It just says that we need to validate your payment information. When you hover over the link, and this is a really good way to try and verify when you're looking at something, is this legitimate? Because we've done it, we've looked at it. And Bruce has sent me things and said, look at how well written this is. When you hover over a link, you will always see that that link is taking you to somewhere completely different than obviously this Netflix one. So pay attention to that. When in doubt, Bruce's phrase is always throw it out. A prime example is we were dealing with a promotions company at one point in time. They switched owners and then they switched names and they did some rebranding. They sent me an invoice for some work that they did for us and I deleted it.
Yeah.
It's an invoice I was supposed to pay. So then I went into my deleted items and I deleted it. I did not recognize the company name. Hadn't received an email saying they were rebranding. So I just assumed this is a phishing attempt. Nobody likes somebody or a company following up with you and saying, listen, why haven't received payment from you? And I had to tell them I deleted it. You didn't notify me that there's a branding change. So it's garbage. You need to resend it to me now.
In all honesty, Delilah, I got a thing similar to that from Service Canada. And it's like, you have, we need to, or whatever, I forget what it was about, probably with serve or whatever. And I'm like, delete, right? And then it's like, oh, my whatever stopped, my funds or whatever, when something happened. So I called Service Canada. Well, you didn't reply to our whatever. I'm like, I thought it was a scam. And they're like, oh yeah, we get that. It's like Canadian government. You gotta hire Nesda, guys.
And that's one of the things too, even for Nesda Technologies, we try really hard to be conscientious about not sending a link in our own emails to our clients, right? If I'm following up with somebody who maybe, is slightly overdue with an invoice, if all I do is send to them, I'm following up because this invoice is overdue, I'd delete that. I'd be like, it probably isn't, and this is a scam.
Right.
But what I put in there is the details of the invoice for this is the work that we did, or this is for hosting your website for the last 3 months. It's your quarterly regular one, may have gone into your junk folder. So I'm using some more verbiage to say this is legitimate as opposed to something that might seem a little bit less legitimate.
Good example.
Okay, malware. Malware is a virus. It's worms, it's Trojans, it's ransomware, it's spyware, it's adware, it's botnets, it's rootkits, and more. They all have one thing in common, it's malicious. They all come in with malicious intent. But malware as a whole, when you hear that, is not separate from a virus. It's not separate from ransomware. Malware is the world, basically. I tried to Google to find out how many different types of malware there are on the planet. The smallest number I came up across was something like 672,000 different kinds of malware that's out there.
Is that it?
Yeah,
That's it, no problem.
right?
Yeah, we're on top of it.
So the Microsoft technician calling you again, this is kind of similar to the phishing attempts. There's a sense of urgency. If you don't let me into your computer, something bad's going to happen. And some people still do this, and they let the technician in, and all they're doing is connecting to your computer, and they're taking control. And I've put the example up here of installing an exe, which is an executable file. They're installing something, and they're in. Could be a keylogger. Could be a virus, could be a Trojan. It's a piece of malware is what they're doing.
Malicious intent.
Malicious intent. So how do they get in? So here's where we get into a couple of examples. So this one in particular, I don't need my notes for this. Look at that. So I got this from freecodecamp.org. That's quite an interesting website. They have quite a bit of information on there. So Pass Revelator and Pass Wi-Fi will do the same type of thing here. This example is Pass Wi-Fi. If you can see in the screenshot, the faint blue or the brighter blue, whatever it is called Pass Wi-Fi. So what this does is it provides the hacker all of the SSID names What does I always forget what it stands for.
I forget too.
Okay.
SSID.
I'm not, it doesn't matter what it stands for. We don't need to know what the acronym stands for, because what it is, where you see name, access code, name, access code, name, access code. Everywhere you see name is a device that whatever has been hacked into has connected to. So if someone's hacked into wherever my phone is, someone's hacked into my phone. If they're using past Wi-Fi, they're seeing, they're gonna see more than 3 because I'm connected to so many more devices over the last couple of years that I've had the phone. They're gonna see every network name and every device that I've connected to name and every one of the access codes. So they now can get into everything just from looking at the past Wi-Fi. Wireless access points, we talked about this. So a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine had told me about an app that has existed for quite some time, where you install it on your phone and you can drive around town looking for all of the free Wi-Fi areas, and it'll provide you all of the passwords. That's what this is to a certain degree. So it's supposed to be a crowdsourced hotspot finder, which gives you a map that will find all of the nearby Wi-Fi connections. And the password is actually saved in the map. So you know how when you're looking at Google Maps, sometimes you'll see the little red is where you want to end up. You're starting over here, you're ending up over here. It's like that. There's little tagged areas on the map of everywhere that there's public domain Wi-Fi. And you can click on that little tab or the little red thing, and it will give you the password for that. So is this legitimate? I find it questionable. Is it safe? Absolutely not. Number one, it's public domain Wi-Fi. Do not connect to it. Number two, some of the ways that they get the information is by people sending it to them, saying, oh, hey, listen, we've got a free Wi-Fi access point. Here's the credentials. Please add it to your map. Well, it's a hijacker. It's just given credentials to go on this map. So how safe is it really? But again, it's public domain Wi-Fi. Don't connect.
That should be a t-shirt.
Yeah. So password spraying. So this one I do need my notes for. So this one is when we get back to the main screen here, it's going to show you the Mercury at Pluto. There it is at the top. You see rocku.txt. Rocku is this word list. Rocku is a word list. There's multiple word lists out there. So a little bit of code, a little bit of typing. What this person's done is they're trying to break into that email address. They're using the Rocku word list to search all of the words that are known as poor passwords that have been broken into before. This is auto-generated. It can run list after list after list until it finds, if it's a poor password and it's not complex, they're going to get in. This isn't them sitting there keying in a password, oh, decline, password decline. They're just running a whole list and multiple lists that will eventually get them into that email address.
I might add one thing to your poor password statement. It's any password that has been harvested and then shared out on the dark web, including the good ones.
Including the good ones, right? Including the more complex ones. Brute force hacking. So again, we've got the Mercury at Pluto email address, and this is Crunch as the example. So brute force attacks involve the attacker generating a custom word list alongside usernames or emails on different platforms. And this is generally used if there's more of a target, a specified target for what they want to try to get into. So you'll see that the AB will come up on the screen. That's them generating a list. This is an example list of the potential passwords that could fit. But again, this runs auto-generated eventually.
So does that mean that if in my password I have an A, that it'll flag my?
No, some
No.
people actually use A as a password
I
or
see what you're
ABC
saying.
as a
Okay.
password. So they're starting with the easiest ones
Oh,
first, and
got
this is an example to say, here's a word list that they've actually created, and they're now auto-generating it.
So password, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So this is a good example. I took this from a website called Wallarm, and this describes the man in the middle attack primarily. As you can see down at the bottom, it says perpetrator, man in the middle. So one of two things has happened here. The man in the middle has created that rogue access point that mimics the real one. The user has now connected to that rogue one that the perpetrator has created. The user is still going out to the internet, but all of that information that goes back and forth between the user and the internet is being watched by the perpetrator as the man in the middle. The other way, this is primarily what they end up doing. They build the rogue one, but the other way is to actually just intercept, because it's public Wi-Fi. So the perpetrator has now intercepted the original connection, and the same thing is happening. The user's getting information from the internet, but the perpetrator is in between that information going back and forth. So here's a good analogy. I don't remember what site I took this from, my apologies. Panda Security. A man in the middle attack is comparable to someone opening a confidential piece of your mail, copying your information, then resealing the envelope before you're aware. It's a pretty basic explanation.
Very clear.
Yeah, I think so. Keyloggers. All right, this one's interesting. So what a keylogger will do is, once they're into a system, they don't sit there watching you type A, B, C, D, E. They don't. What happens is, once they're in that system, they just let you go for a few days, few weeks, however long they want to do it. They pay attention, they'll go back and they'll look through the log files, and what they'll look for is a few keystrokes, enter, a few keystrokes, enter. So the example we have here, there's a few keystrokes of an email address, return, which is enter, and then a few keystrokes with the word Greg, which is the password, with return, enter. That's what they look for. They know what they're looking for when they're in there. So they go right to that section of the log file, and they've now got your email address and the login and anything else that you've logged into.
So does that mean like when you get a prompt saying, hey, you can save your password on this device? Is that what they've logged into?
No.
No.
I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
They
They're buried in the
could have
windows.
hacked into something
Hmm,
and put a keylogger on it.
I see.
When you're getting that type of a prompt, though, that's generally we're talking about, because Windows does autosave, does it not?
Yeah,
Bruce?
yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you can, again, is it secure? You need to make sure that it's secure. We talked about Chrome, saving your credentials in Chrome. Chrome or Edge, which is fine to do. They're safe when you make them safe. They have to be secure.
Got it.
Okay. So a few statistics, and we know that with COVID, we talked about that already. There was a big hit. People started working from home, and still to this day have continued to. So shopping online in 2018, 73% of Canadians shopped online, and by 2020 that rose to 84%, and we now know it's into the 90%. 76% of Canadians communicated through instant messaging apps. No big shock. 71% connected through social networking sites. 64% use the internet for online voice or video calls, business or personal. And working at home, of course, was really paramount for companies that could do that as an alternative throughout the pandemic. But a lot of security gaps there when you're talking about working at home. If you haven't made sure that your gaps are secure, then there's more issues. So then we move into what the statistics are as far as a hack. This comes from madeincanada.ca. This was from August 2023. Over 85% of Canadian companies were affected by successful cyber attacks in 1 year.
Wow.
11% of Canadian companies were hit by ransomware, and they paid the ransom. The average ransomware hit cost Canadian companies almost $2 million to remedy. Only 42% of data breaches in Canada are caused by malicious attacks. So what that means is someone's looking for a trophy. They actually didn't even want your information or your data. They wanted to be able to brag that they got into something.
Huh.
It takes around 160 days, 168 days on average to identify a data breach in Canada. That's pretty scary, and that refers back to the mailbox hijacking that we had talked about, where the hijacker had been in the mailbox for 18 months at a minimum that we know of. In 2021, Canadians lost around $100 million to online fraud. The most common types of online fraud in Canada involve investment and romance. The romance piece I was a little shocked by.
Yeah.
Investment, not so much. It's money, right?
Right.
Excuse me.
Well, if you watch any detective shows, those are the two things that prompt it.
That's true.
Theory. Money and romance.
Over half of Canadians have experienced cybercrime at least once. 2% of Canadians have had their identities stolen. That's over 765,000 people that have had their identities stolen. So let's just go back for a minute. How do you think all of this happened? Do you think this was the start of it?
Yeah.
We get more and more connected to technology and the internet. It's bound to happen. And we're not secure. So in the headlines today, so this one's kind of interesting. This isn't about small business, but it's something to think about, because when we talk about the Internet of Things, all of those smart devices that are showing up in people's homes because they love how cool they are. So TP-Link is a very big brand. They created a smart bulb. Researchers, however, were testing them, and they discovered 2 high severity bugs and 2 medium severity vulnerabilities. The vulnerabilities would allow nearby attackers to operate the bulb. Does anyone care if a hijacker or an attacker is turning your light on and off and on and off because they've now hijacked it? It would be annoying, but would you be concerned?
Unless they're alerting, or it's a Morse code signal
Yeah.
to the burglars to come in. I don't know.
I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, right?
It's been a Home Alone thing, but anyway.
The bigger problem with this is that people can be very brand specific. So when they like particular smart devices, they'll use that same brand of other smart devices in their home. Once that family brand is connected, because it all falls under one account, if the hijacker can get into the smart bulb, they've now gotten into everything else that
That
is
Apple
a
sells
smart
you.
device.
Yeah. Wow.
And again, we're talking about Wi-Fi passwords and whether or not they're compromised. So you could have 30 different brands of 30 different smart devices on it at home. If your home Wi-Fi password is not complex and it's been compromised, they're into everything. So now this isn't even just your network, it's every smart device. It's your fridges, it's your heating and cooling, it's your lighting, it's whatever else you've
Garage
got.
door opener.
Garage
on
door
it.
opener, right. This story, this is about a small business owner. So this was reported in the Calgary Herald. It's the gentleman that owns a boutique liquor store. An employee did what a lot of employees do, clicked on what appeared to be a very innocuous link. Unfortunately, it was not. The hackers got into their systems and froze everything. Excuse me. They did have backups and they felt enough security. Bearing in mind that employees need to be trained on what not to click on as well. That's part of your security, but they did lose a couple of weeks of data. So did the world end for them? No, but they were held ransom. The Calgary police urged them to not pay the ransom, but they did. Nesda Technologies will urge you to not pay the ransom. Their data was restored, but don't ever count on that.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're going to get it back. It doesn't mean you're going to get it back unencrypted. And it doesn't mean you're going to get it back without an extra little nugget in there that they've stuck in to stick back into your network. There's no guarantees.
Fresh start.
So the CEO of the Ottawa Food Bank, the word that she uses is how distasteful this Microsoft article was, and she is 100% correct. It was a Microsoft article that was put out with 15 must-see attractions in Ottawa, and the must-see attractions included you saw the article? Yeah.
That's crazy.
It included the Ottawa Food Bank as a must-see attraction. So there were other issues with the article. The Rideau River was talked about, but the picture was the Rideau Canal. The Rideau Canal was talked about, but Parc Omega near Montebello, Quebec was actually the picture. It had the verbiage saying, "Enjoy the pristine grass of Parliament Hills." And then the article closed with, life is already difficult enough, consider going into it with an empty stomach. Clearly, that's the piece that the CEO was saying was so distasteful. I mean, the fact that it ended up on a 15 must-see attractions list, but then to close the article with something like that. So the article got pulled. An unknown Microsoft spokesperson said, and I love this, we have identified the issue was due to human error. In this case, the content was generated through a combination of algorithmic techniques. Algorithmic techniques, people, is AI.
Right,
It's AI. This was not human error.
with human review.
They're saying because the human reviewed it and didn't catch what the AI did, that this was not AI. It said that it was not a large language model or AI system. I'm calling BS on that because you cannot say algorithmic techniques without referring to AI. That's exactly what this was.
Well, AI is basically the library or the encyclopedias that are live, like, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the writer of the encyclopedia has any
Is
kind of
accurate.
knowledge.
And
It's
Bruce
just gathering
Bruce is going
data.
to touch on AI and what it's actually proving out to be, even more so than something as ridiculous as this.
Aw,
That's actually interesting because I thought it was a joke, somebody playing sarcasm or something.
Oh, is that right? Oh.
Yeah, I took it as sarcasm. I didn't really know it was like a big AI thing. I thought somebody's being a smartass.
No.
Delilah, if I could say something on that.
Yes, Bruce, go ahead.
What we're seeing is that AI is just a large collection of articles, and the AI is actually sorting that out and producing new articles from the information that it's been fed.
mm,
So garbage in, garbage out has
Right.
always been a rule for computers. And a lot of the news feeds you see, is you put things on the news feeds on your phone now, those are AI generated, and they're just regurgitated content. This was just a badly regurgitated article.
right. Well, like how Wikipedia got built when it first started, right? Like somebody
Garbage
added.
in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Okay, so these predictions, I mentioned briefly earlier on. I'm gonna quickly go through these because I believe it's 10 after 2 already. I actually found these in October. So in October, Nesda actually put on a cybersecurity summit, and I started looking at predictions for what are tech leaders and the industry leaders saying to look out for in the near future. And this is what I found. So stickmancyber.com, they talked about point of sales. Your point of sales systems absolutely need to be on their own separate network. Can't be connected to your guest Wi-Fi. Your guest Wi-Fi should be separate from your own personal Wi-Fi that you've got going on either at home or work. Point of sale systems need to be separate. Soulcyber.com, they're talking about cybersecurity insurance. This is becoming so commonplace now. We at least once a week, we get emails from our clients saying, I'm applying for or trying to get, but my insurance company needs these technical questions answered that I don't know how to answer. So it's constant, it's growing. The other thing to bear in mind, and we may have a resident expert on this. We talked about the Internet of Things in your home and all your smart devices. How long is it going to be before you are declined home insurance because you haven't got proper cybersecurity insurance on your home?
That makes sense.
It can be broken into.
Totally makes sense.
Well, after I can spend the entire afternoon talking about automation in smart homes.
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh, it totally makes sense. Like, hi, I've got a light bulb. I just installed this light
Yeah.
bulb and now it's got all my passwords,
Yeah.
and then it's opened up my garage. and
Something as
everybody
simple
can-
as a light bulb, right?
Yeah.
It just opens the door to crazy. So file corruption versus file encryption. This is interesting. So corruption is when a hacker pulls a copy of your data and they make it unreadable. But when they do that, when they pull it out, they're not detected by malware protection at all. If they're doing the encryption, that can be detected. The corruption cannot. RAS, so that's ransomware as a service. We've got IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. We've got SaaS, which is software as a service. So now this is becoming a thing where even the little guys out there, the single persons, are climbing on board with doing ransomware as a service because it's becoming so lucrative for them.
Wow.
ZDNet.com. So this, I mentioned zero trust. What they're actually saying here is all devices and all users require regular re-authentication. So it's going to become onerous. Their prediction as well said that they felt that most companies would probably not move towards this model, although their suggestion was to do it. Because really it's just about making sure it's the right user who's at the right device, who's logging into the right thing. The final piece here for human casualties that they are predicting scares, pardon my language, plays the hell out of me. They're talking about, can you imagine our hospitals' life support systems being hacked?
Yikes.
Our hospitals, the cancer clinic systems being hacked. What hospital or care place is going to decline paying a ransom when people's lives are at stake?
We're gonna turn off everything if you don't,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
That could be a Born Identity movie. Oh my goodness.
Sorry, so are you saying those programs are what we should be using or be aware of only?
This is a total awareness. Be aware of them.
Okay.
Okay, so we're just at the what do you need to do today? I'm going to go through this very quickly, and I know this is very poor presentation style, but I'm going to read all of these because all of these are important. I believe we had talked about making sure that everybody gets the slides so that
Yep, 100%.
you can refer back to this, but I'm going to go
Share
through
with
it
your
quickly.
team.
You want to make sure it's a trusted resource who handles your hardware, update passwords and make them complex, turn on, start using multi-factor authentication. I believe Bruce speaks to this a little bit. Hardware keys or tokens rather than texted codes are now the go-to for multi-factor authentication. Change your passwords occasionally. Make sure passwords and security questions and answers are stored securely. Check your email address, every email address. Look for forwarding rules that you did not put into place. Lock down your home network. If you didn't initiate it, don't click on it. So unsubscribe, for example. Hover over any links before clicking on them if you think you did initiate it. Clean out your junk folder. Check for legitimate emails because legitimate emails will go into your junk folder, but clean it out, delete them, then go to your deleted items and delete those. Do not use repeat passwords on different devices or accounts. Turn off unnecessary services and features on devices and accounts. Make sure all devices have a password both at home and in the office. Consistently monitor and audit. Add HTTPS and an SSL cert to your website. Use a secure web host for your site. You can use things like the reCAPTCHA and the V2, and that's where you click on I'm not a robot, or you have to, out of 9 boxes, click on the 6 boxes that have a picture of a car in them. That's for visitors coming to your site to help keep your website safe. Back up your data in a secondary location and your website. Do not use public Wi-Fi. Do not use public charging stations. Check, have I been pawned? And check the wording on that, PWNED, and Bruce does talk a bit more about this. Get a plan in place. You want a disaster recovery plan. So it's the recovery of a mailbox, your data, your passwords. Set up recovery accounts. Find a responsible resource online and follow their news. Confirm your modem and router are up to date on the firmware software. Make sure your devices have current operating systems. Make sure your devices have current security updates. Stay educated. Google is your friend. If you have a question about security for anything, you can find all kinds of information online.
But don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Don't believe everything. Make sure it's a responsible resource.
Right.
So thank you very much.
Wow.
Again, there's our email address, cybersecurity@nesda.ca, and I will step aside so Bruce can take over.
Thank you so much, Delilah.
Thank you.
How are you doing, Tom? You have any questions? You're awful quiet there. Everybody doing all right? Okay, we're gonna carry on. Bruce is here to finish off the afternoon with us. Thank you, Bruce.
No problem. Well, now we've got you concerned, we'll solve some of these problems here.
Oh,
So
thank you. That's awesome.
let's see what we can do. See what we can get into. So there we go. Welcome. I'm gonna throw the email address out the front again, cybersecurity@nesda.ca. Email us a question, requests. If you want to know the laundry list that Delilah just mentioned, we're happy to send that to you. My name's Bruce. I've been with Nesda for 24, almost 25 years, and pretty much have seen and done everything you can imagine within the company. I get the pleasure of talking on occasions like this about do's and don'ts and best practices, and really one of my mandates, I want to be honest to educate everybody so they are safe. Delilah's done this to you. And I'm proud of her because it's important. And what I want to do is try to deconfuse that a little bit with some things you can do right away in your life and at work that are going to keep you safer, and talk about how not to get hacked or hacked again, which speaks to questions that have already been asked about that. And quickly, we talked about what the topics were going to be today, and what can be hacked, the risk, and what do you need to do today. And that was really the syllabus that was out there on the flyer originally. So what's your risk? I'm going to say that a small business is a better target than a large business. It takes a lot of resources to carve your way into a Fortune 500 company or a hospital and look at getting that $500,000 or $1 million or $5 million ransomware. It is so easy to hit you, gather information, maybe hold you hostage for a few $100 and then just be gone. You're a bigger, easier target. And as the saying goes, it's better to get $1 from 1 million people than $1 million from one person. We are all so vulnerable in small, medium enterprise and in our personal lives. What's your responsibility? So you can hack, who's to blame? It's you. It's all on you. It is not the technology's fault. It's not your provider's fault. It's all things that you could do better because the bad guys are leveraging all the weaknesses that you have. The shared responsibility model in IT is exactly the same as when you have a landlord in a building. The break and enter is not your landlord's fault. Pretty simple. So this is all on you to fix and be safe about.
That's why we're here.
So this image, it comes from one of our techs who said it first, and he gets all the credit. Jeff said it first. He said, this should be a sliding scale. You can have easy or secure. You can't have both. Our job is to help you make good choices so that it's not cumbersome, but it is secure. It won't be easy. It isn't easy. It's like trying to lose 30 pounds. It takes some work. I want to talk a bit about phishing. Because this is really the biggest way to get into any network. We're sending targeted messages to you somehow, and I want to go through the basic do's and don'ts of what you need to watch for and reinforce what Delilah said earlier. And there's the
Can you share your
statistic.
screen, please?
Oh, sorry.
How is it not? I'm sure you are.
I thought it was shared, so my apologies.
It's being shared.
Make sure it is.
Oh, it's, you have to switch to
there we
your presentation, yeah.
Yep, sorry.
No, wrong one.
That's me.
What's that?
Should see the phishing slide right now, do you?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Perfect. There you go.
I'm so
Small
glad you're on the
apologies.
job there.
Sorry, Joe.
Okay,
Sorry.
I want to go back to this one because this is your fault. So it's your responsibility if you get hacked. It is all on you. And there's my sliding scale. That was such a great graphic. I got to show it off. You can have easy or secure. You can't have both. Let's jump into phishing. And the statistic is that 99% of the attacks involve one email and one click. Phishing comes in a variety of forms, mostly emails, thousands of them a day. Voicemail phishing, especially on mobile phones, seems to be a thing. Leave you a voicemail, get you to go somewhere and do things. Faxes, account reset requests, letter mail. You see it not so much anymore, but it's all out there. They're all targeted, they're all planned, and they're all lucrative. Red flags for a phishing attempt. First of all, it's unexpected. It's an unusual request. There's a sense of urgency. There's dire consequences if you don't act. It appeals to your emotions. We want to push buttons and get you off guard. It's confusing. The jargon side of it gets to add confusion. That actually catches seniors off guard so easily because they don't understand and they freak out. Now they're a perfect victim. Formatting, grammatical errors are in there, good clues of what's going on, broken missing links, unusual web links. What I want to do is boil that down a little bit. Look, we've all seen these emails, and because we're a little tight on time, I'm going to skip the sample emails because I could spend 4 hours just showing samples and tearing them apart. Dire sense of urgency here. Your email account will expire in 48 hours. Push some people's buttons. This comes down to one of the 10 categories here. If you didn't expect it, that's your biggest warning sign. Slow down, catch your breath, and decide what you're going to do. The rest of them are just side effects that are unexpected, because what somebody wants to do is catch you off guard. And it's just pretty much that simple. This is a Facebook reset request I got the other day.
Wow.
And again, what's going to go on about that? So if we had some more time, I'd tell the whole backstory on that, but I've got some better stories to share. So what do I want to do when I get that Facebook reset request? I didn't initiate it. It just showed up in my mail. So what you want to do is make sure that you're not panicking, you're not reacting, and you're not caught off guard by it. Decide what your next move is. Don't respond. Delete the email or put it aside and look at it later. And go check your accounts through other methods. So I did the right thing. When I had a minute, I went and logged on to my Facebook account. This is my work Facebook account. Logged on, look at the unusual requests. There's no unusual requests there. So I can't tell you whether that was a real password reset attempt that was coming to me or a fake one. I still don't know. I will never know. But you should trust your gut. When it doesn't feel right, it's fake, plain and simple. I don't care how convincing they are. Get help, get advice, and get out of that. But do not follow anything that comes to you unexpectedly by email. Pretty simple. That's what happens with phishing. So why are they phishing? We already talked about it. What in a phishing attempt they want is your username and password, because they can get into something else. They can add that into their library of millions and millions of usernames and passwords, and they can start beating on things like a banking website and hopefully get in and get your account or your Facebook account or your email account. Anything to them is useful, any little scrap of information. And that's what they want, plain and simple. They're looking for ways to generate revenue for them or find their next victims. I want to talk about mailbox hijacking to tear this one down, because this is where people do get hacked. It's where it's going on all the time, and there's ways to prevent this. So let's just kind of look at it quickly and see what's going on. I've sent you a piece of phishing email, or I've asked you to open a OneDrive document, or all those things, and you're not sure what to do, so you key in your username and password. I've now got the username and password at outlook.com or gmail.com, or your company's mail address at nesda.ca. So I've now got a username and password. So now I can log on to that webmail side of that mailbox, and I can do whatever I want. I could change the password. I could take over the mailbox. I could see my contact list. I could see your past emails. What they'll tend to do is get in, sit there, and read your emails for weeks. And what they're after is what's going on in that person's life. In the good old days, we used to get these emails that would say, I'm traveling, I've lost my passport, can you wire me some money? It's a really old scam, so about 10 years old now, but this is where they were generated from. They'd read the person's email, see when they're going on vacation, and then email all their family contacts from within their mailbox looking for wired money. So they intercept email, and then the other thing they can do, of course, is use that mailbox to send out spam and sell pharmaceuticals or Louis Vuitton handbags, which seem to be big this week. What's happening now, the more subtle ones are that we take over the mailbox, we set some forwarding rules. Delilah spoke to that, and I've got a couple of good screens to show you here about this. And then they cover their tracks and they stay invisible and wait for the revenue opportunities to come to them. So let's go to the real life story on this one. This was a person in a sales role, independent operator, and they had their mailbox credentials stolen, and people were in their mailbox. When this first happened, the IT support for that company said, change your password, you'll be fine. Person did. Were referred to us out of the blue from somebody else in the same business and said, go see these guys, there's something wrong, because they were finding that e-transfers were still being intercepted. And they'd already done what their IT had advised. And so I talked to them, I said, I really want to see the notebook. Can you bring it in? I need to see what's going on, because what you're explaining doesn't make sense to me. So the person brought the notebook into us, and we sat down and kind of tore it apart and looked at what was going on. What we found in the mailbox rules, this is an Outlook.com account. So in the mailbox rules for their account for email, any of these keywords were set as a forwarding rule. So anything that said e-transfer, EFT, check, down payment, all those things
were being forwarded out to 2 Gmail accounts.
Oh, my goodness.
And we figured this ran for about 18 months. So any inbound email, a copy was being flipped out elsewhere. And the bad guys were receiving the emails, also receiving the email conversations, possibly by a separate email, to give the password on the e-transfers and getting to it before this person could. And they were intercepting e-transfers. It gets worse. So they also added a rule for anything that comes back with the word postmaster in it would automatically go to archive, so it's hidden from the user. So any emails that they would send out that went the wrong place by accident that might fail and come back, the failure messages were being hidden from the user. So they completely hid their tracks and sat there on the side receiving emails and credentials and financial information for 18 months and intercepted all of those. So the impact was 18 months, $50,000 of e-transfers and transactions were lost. The client information was exposed and they had a data breach on their hands. We talked to them about the data breach in our recommendation because in the conversations, we found out how much of their clients' transactions were handled back and forth with this person by email. Bank accounts, T-floors, notice of assessment, credit histories from Equifax and TransUnion. All this stuff would have been forwarded to the bad guys. From our perspective, the problem was we went to them and said, you've been breached, you need to deal with it. They said, no, and didn't do anything about it. We actually went to our lawyers and got an opinion to cover our backside, said, we've told this person they have a breach and they should be talking to their clients. What do we do? The lawyer said, you're fine. You've given them the advice, it's theirs to own or not. But the person felt this was not a breach.
So that means that every client,
Anybody that did business with
With
any
what?
of their customers
right,
in large financial
They-
transactions for 18 months. And they have no idea, those people have no idea their service provider had a breach.
that's like not wearing a mask during the act. It's like,
In the United States, as a large corporation, you have 4 days to report a breach. Anyway, so back to the responsibility for this. It was completely on the salesperson. We, as the last minute IT rescuer, did our due diligence and we did our part. And it's not on technology, it's not on anybody else, but it's on them to have gotten good advice and had good practices, best practices in the first place. So I want to talk about best practices. I'll do a couple of the short stories, but I really want to get into the mode here of fixing what your exposure is and reducing it. So let's do some upgrading here on your best practices and help you be safer. So the goal really is here to prevent the attacks on you. And we're going to do that through better security and following best practices. We're going to reduce the spread of any attack, make it difficult for the bad guys to move around. Again, following best practices is pretty simple. It's all those things on the secure side of the scale instead of the easy side. So passwords, I want to talk quickly about what you need to do for passwords. They need to be complex. They should not be words, they can't be your dog's name plus your kid's birthday. They need to be 12 characters or better. They need to be complex. And we used to say change your passwords frequently, and what we realized, we were torturing users by doing that. So we want you to change them regularly. That may be every few months, once a year, you decide. I have some passwords on my personal life I haven't changed in years because they're big, they're complex, and I've protected them properly. No need to change them. Never recycle a password. You used it last year, you're changing your password again. Now you're going to use the same password again. Never use one you've used before. Never share them. Consider passphrases. Blue monkey chocolate screwdriver is a great password. There's about 24 characters there. Put a 4 in the middle of it somewhere. You've got a great password.
and an asterisk.
Yep. No, everybody uses asterisks.
Oh, okay.
But don't mix it up. Change some, put some numbers in there. You've got yourself a monstrous password that's going to fit your brain and you're always going to remember it. Passwords need to be stored safely. And I'm going to talk a bit about that in a moment. Passwords need to be unique. Every single account you have needs a different password.
Smart.
Because otherwise, if I guess one, I've guessed them all. And that's what's happened. The network attacks that Delilah mentioned for ransomware, because they had one password, they could go anywhere because they were using the same password. That's a problem.
So just to touch lightly on that too, because we talked a bit about account recovery. So when you're logging into CRA, for example, they ask you to answer at least
Security
one
questions.
security question, right?
Oh,
When you're setting up your security questions, don't give honest answers.
be silly.
What's the name of the street that you grew up on?
Sugaroo.
Yeah.
One I can spell.
Right?
Use wrong answers on
I
purpose.
Generally,
That's so.
something, I
Delilah.
put something like ostrich,
Right.
right? I put something, screwdriver.
Yeah.
Yep.
Screwdriver 5, something like that. Like my security answers are obscure for a reason.
That's very smart. I like that idea.
Security answers that you see, generally, the best way for bad guys to get those is to pop out a survey on Facebook. What's the first car you ever drove? Honda,
Right.
or whatever.
How many
That's-
people on Facebook send those out and they say, oh, I got 15 out of 20.
Boy, you're a good target.
Shoot. Oh, my goodness.
So let's talk about password storage. This is a picture of a notebook that came to us. I've blotted out the actual password.
I love it.
We see these about every 3 months. Don't do this. My goodness, just don't. Storing passwords properly. Use a password keeper. Use your browser's password keeper. I love using Chrome for passwords. I split my life into 3 pieces: my personal life, my regular work, and my secure work. My personal life and my regular work, lots of passwords are saved in Chrome. Chrome is secured properly. We're going to get to that, how we do that. My high secure work, we use up to 24 character passwords. We have a commercial password keeper. Those never stay in my browser because that's our data center. And I'm not going to leave that kind of stuff floating around in my personal world. I'm not going to be responsible for it. Consider using a 3-ring binder or a book and keeping it in a safe. Using your day planner and keeping it in your briefcase is not secure. We've dealt with that one before, especially when it's got lost. That's a problem. But paper in a binder, in a safe is an incredibly secure way to go, and technology can fail completely. You've still got a backup plan. So look at understanding how to secure those things and how they're going to fail. Passwords on devices, default passwords on your router, default accounts on a notebook, everywhere. Remove them, make new ones, make sure you've got a better way in, because admin on your router, if you unknowingly have your router facing the internet for its web management portal, the bad guys are going to start attacking that. Microtik routers are famous for having this. So everything, lock it down properly, write those things in your binder, put it in the safe in case you ever need it, but change those default passwords right away so that you're not an attack surface. QuickBooks, we see so many people are still working as the administrator account in QuickBooks, and they haven't separated the security on those financial files. Now, if you have backup and it's stolen, they've already got the password, just using a default one. Multi-factor authentication is what's going to help you with these accounts. When you have MFA involved in a sign-on, you use your username, password, you get a pop-up on a phone, and then you say yes, and you continue. That way, if credentials are stolen, they don't have both pieces of the information because they haven't got your mobile phone or your security key or whatever that second factor is. You've got 2 keys for every door now. If you lose one key, they still don't have the second one when they find the first one, and that's just incredibly important. There are some ways to do that, and that's mobile devices, hardware tokens of various flavors, fingerprint reading, SMS codes. They're all good. Some are better than others. They're all important. When you have your phone and you secure your phone, you do it with a PIN number or fingerprint or facial recognition. The same thing. All those things are very, very important to do and secure it right down the line. Multi-factor authentication, I just can't say enough, everywhere. Anywhere you can use it. If your bank does not use MFA yet, you need a new bank. Everywhere. You're helpless without it, because eventually passwords are going to become useless. As technology improves their ability to brute force and harvest data, it's going to be easier to break that password. You need the second piece of security in there everywhere you go. That's why banks, when you go to a safety deposit box, there's 2 keys. You get one, the bank gets one. That's why. So real life story. I don't have slides on this one. I'm just going to tell the story really easily. Delilah already touched on this. We've had a couple incidents where multi-factor authentication, people have been getting, they're under attack and they're getting pop-ups and they don't know why. And eventually you give up and just say yes and move on and don't question it. We've had that happen a couple times on networks. And as for you or for your staff, if you've got a team, they need to understand that if they didn't prompt that, there's something wrong. I touched that with on my Facebook password reset. I didn't initiate it. I need to stop completely. That's the branch snapping in the woods. And that's where you need to stop. There's a problem. Don't go any further. Never say yes to MFA. And don't start following the links in the email or the text message to see what's going on and get more information. Stop completely. Go look at your accounts through other means and make sure you're fine before you react or act in any way.
I like your point. If you didn't initiate it.
I didn't initiate it. I'm not doing anything until I figure exactly what's going on. The other thing has happened, we've had experience with a tech team, not us, but within our realm, where staff did not want multi-factor authentication on their phones. I'm not using my phone at work for your MFA. Their IT team involved said,
Hold on a second.
okay,
I'm just going to interrupt you for a minute.
all right.
So their other option could have been because employees are not legally required to use multi-factor authentication on their phone as a way to help protect work systems. Unless the company owns the phones, obviously.
Right.
So the other option is for the company to buy the hardware tokens. They're about $40-60 per, but they're a lifetime token unless something get damaged somehow.
Couple different things.
We have that.
This company chose not to pay for hardware tokens. So what Bruce is about to tell you is the workaround they found.
So the solution, when people don't want to use their phones, was the IT person used their phone for MFA for about a dozen user accounts, with the logic being anytime they got a prompt, they would approve it for the user.
That one person would get, and I think it was more than 12 users, it was about 20.
Yeah.
They would get the prompt on their phone, accept, because the employees didn't want it on their phone and they did not want to pay for the hardware.
So what's happened is we've just lost the context. I get the alert on my phone, that's the branch snapping behind me in the woods. I need to stop. That context is now gone because the IT person has no idea who logged in, they're just approving it. So we might as well not have MFA.
Right.
That's my real life story on that.
It's
So-
like having your backups connected to your network, and when your backups or when your data gets corrupted, so does your backups, right?
And we'll talk a bit about backups. Administrator accounts on computers. Most people in a small network run as a local administrator. This is a really, really bad idea.
Where do you find that? Like, where do you,
In the Windows settings,
okay,
and we can give some direction on how to look for that.
perfect.
If you're never being asked by Windows to make changes to your computer and whether it's okay, you're running as an administrator.
Right.
The smaller the network, the more that happens, and we fight with this with our networks all the time. People want to be an administrator so they can make their own changes. We're going, no, you're not safe enough to do that. When your regular account is an administrator, any malicious software on the computer now has full rights as an administrator to make changes and do anything and install more malicious software, bring in all of its friends. So what you need to do is make a separate administrator account and then demote your normal account so that malware cannot blindly make changes to the machine and gather data. That's really what it's about. Separate out and use administrator accounts for what they're intended. Everybody hates it because it's difficult. Again, it's not easy, it's secure. You'll see a lot of prompts when you do that. The one on the left is the user access control, started showing up in Windows XP. Do you want to run this? Yes or no? Every one of these is a branch snapping in the woods. This comes up for a reason. The computer is saying, I need you to think about your next step. You can't ignore them. You need to stop and read. And if you're in a hurry, you're just clicking on stuff. You notice the one on the left is asking, can we run malware.exe?
Yeah.
This is what you get but it's that moment of sober thought before something gets to act, and it's just critical. It saves us from spending a lot of time and your money cleaning up malware. The other one to point out is the little checkbox that says, don't ask me again on connections to this computer. Don't ask me again. You see that in a lot of software. I recommend you never check those checkboxes. These are moments of sober thought for something. This is an opportunity for you to slow down and get your bearings and be safe. So my recommendation for anybody is never check those checkboxes. Slows you down a little bit, but it keeps you incredibly safe by doing that, because you're now consciously making your next move instead of in a hurry and unconsciously stepping into something very, very dangerous. So a little sanity check. That's why the software developers built all this stuff in the first place. They want you to say, hey, are you sure? So follow the prompts. Questions on antivirus. Do you need antivirus? Absolutely. Windows Defender and free antivirus will not stop file encryption. You need full-blown commercial paid for antivirus. Whether you're using Sophos, Norton Antivirus, McAfee, big brand names, if you're not spending about $60 a year on your subscription, you're buying garbage.
Got it.
And just to give you the measurement for that, Sophos, which is what we're a reseller of, is $4.50 per user, right?
Yep.
Right.
$4.50 a month, pretty cheap.
$4.50 a month, yeah.
And what we've seen, interestingly enough,
Sorry?
What was that?
Sophos.
Sophos, it's SOPHOS antivirus.
Okay. Thank you. So does that
Interesting.
can you use that with other computers or just one?
Depends on the version you're buying. Some of them are multi-user packages. We sell it as an MSP to enterprise, where it's across the entire network. So there's lots of different purchasing options. Some of them, Norton, for example, has it. You buy a copy, you get to use it on up to 5 computers. There's lots of go shopping, do your homework, and you'll be able to make a great choice. Interesting enough, with Sophos, we've had problems with some of our software development over the last 2 weeks at work, because we're sending secure files. The servers have to encrypt a file and send it to another location. Sophos has been all over that because it looks like ransomware. So between our software team and our tech support team, there's been some heated words.
Antivirus is stopping our own encryption.
Yeah, because it looked at it and went, that's suspicious. Rather interesting.
Well, as you said, right from the very beginning, the onus is up to us,
Yep.
right?
So you gotta understand your product. Maintenance, I could go on for hours on this part. Where do you need to do maintenance? On everything. Run the Windows updates, run the version updates of Windows. Now we're into a version release
Software
cycle.
Updates,
Yep.
security updates on your routers, security update on your wireless access point,
Yep.
your website, software updates on that.
Yep.
Everything needs updates.
Everything needs updates. Hardware's your smart bulbs, they do. No kidding. There are updates for those.
Smart devices.
If it runs an operating system or software, basically, if you plug it in, it probably needs an update. If it's at the end of its life cycle, that 20-year-old D-Link router you've been using forever, you need to replace it because they're not updating it and there are new vulnerabilities. The bad guys are always figuring new ways to get into old hardware. What we see with some of the security products we use, that when we get an MFA, older phones are not allowed to use the MFA app and won't be allowed at all, because Android 4 is no longer a current operating system. And so the
It's not
MFA,
secure.
the MFA vendor has said,
That's a key
not
word,
secure, you're not using it.
right?
So get with the times, you can't use a flip phone anymore. That's what happens. So think about, understand how to update everything and get it updated. Pretty simple.
So if I can ask again,
Pardon me?
if I can interrupt again,
Yes.
question and all that. Part of the business that I'm contemplating working on starting up is actually online podcasting as well as services.
Yes.
And all I could find is that's affordable is either Staples or Best Buy in terms of setting up a whole system. And I'm
Okay.
just wondering what your experience is. I don't think of them as a competition for you guys. I'm looking at budget and reliability. And I'm wondering if that's something up your alley, and does it matter which company you go with as much as just getting going?
Getting going and making sure you're getting good advice and you trust the answers you're getting from your provider matters. Staples and Best Buy are in the home market, you know, move the files from one computer to the other. They're kind of like that mobile phone booth in terms of what they do. We work on enterprise networking for small, medium, large. We also charge a lot higher hourly rate for what they're doing than for the same thing as they're doing, but it's because we know what we're doing. We are in the enterprise mode.
So whoever you want to work with or whoever you're thinking about working with, any device that you are buying from them that they may be setting up for you, everything you want to look at them and say, how does this get secured?
Okay,
Some of the onus is on you to understand the technology that you're using or buying and keep asking the questions until you have it explained to you well enough that you now understand what you've got, and keep asking those questions. Anybody that shuts you down and says, I can't explain that to you, you need somebody else helping you. So I do want to talk a bit about disaster planning.
I think Sarah has a question.
Oh, yeah,
It's
sorry,
not that I
sorry.
have a question, but I have a parallel.
Okay,
So I have a service plumbing company, and it would be like having a handyman versus a plumber doing plumbing work.
Exactly.
The handyman might be capable of doing the plumbing work. Should they be doing the plumbing work? Probably not. It's a restricted trade. Will they do a good enough job? Maybe. But
Maybe
can
not.
it beat the plumber that's had 5 years of experience in their training and then only dealing with plumbing systems for their entire career? You're not going to compare in the knowledge level and the experience
the wisdom.
and
Yep.
the know-how by going with the cheaper handyman. You're not going to get that plumber's level of experience, code, everything.
Yep.
You know, and it never hurts to get a quote from a company like Nesda, for example. You're not tied to it,
Right.
right? You talk to who you feel are the experts that you want to talk to. You get all of the information that you can to make the best, most informed decision. And if in the end, this comes down to, as you said, you know, you need to be cost aware. We get that. We work with nonprofits. We've worked with nonprofits from the time the company started 28 years ago. So I highly recommend that if you want to reach out, we can certainly have a conversation about what you're looking for. And like I said, you're not tied to anything, but you can get a little bit more advice for what you may need to look for when you're out there searching
Absolutely.
what you're looking for.
That's a great
what's your
offer.
contact, sorry?
Yep.
What exactly is your contact?
The email address should be up on another slide. shortly.
Cybersecurity@nesda.ca.
Yeah.
You'll see it at the end of the slides here.
Okay, that's you, thank you.
Well, you know, if it may be Delilah or I that you talk to at the end and say, I'm looking for this, what do I need to know? And if you're setting a home office up, we'll tell you, in our opinion, what you need and what you need to do and what it would cost if we did it for you. You know, certainly there's the whole thing framed up, whether we do it or somebody else doesn't. We're going to at least tell you what we think you need.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I want to talk a bit about disaster planning. Again, this one's all on you to get organized. Okay, really, you're planning to fail. Think about reflecting on what you're doing with your tech, with your business, and with your business larger than just tech. What all could go wrong?
I just want to quickly touch on backups as well. One of the things that we neglect to talk about when we're talking about sole proprietors or small businesses, if you're using a peer-to-peer connection, secure peer-to-peer connection for 2 or 3 employees or 5 employees, that's fine if it's secure. The problem you're going to come across is when the laptop dies or the desktop dies.
Right.
If there's any data on that, it absolutely needs to be backed up. It's not expensive. You can buy a removable couple terabyte hard drive. I think they're what, $100 or something like that.
Yeah.
If that, some might even be cheaper. Back up your data consistently, because once that device dies, if you weren't backing up to the cloud, if you weren't backing up here, the
Right.
server.
Yeah.
And Bruce will talk a bit more about it, but people neglect their singular devices
Mhm.
for backing up.
You get a new phone and all of a sudden the SIM card doesn't fit or work or whatever, and it's like all my contacts are gone.
Yeah.
Or I didn't upgrade Adobe Photoshop, And so, and my laptop died or my tower died, and it's aging myself. And all of a sudden, all my photos of all my life are gone,
Yeah.
right? Like, so it's like,
And we get calls all the
Oops.
time for this. We get people of something's happened and you know, their photos, their family photos for the
Yeah.
last 5 years are all gone. What do they do? Well, we'll point them in the right direction. We may not be the ones fixing that, but we'll at least help them out. So I want to go high level for a minute and then I'm going to come back to backups. So really disaster planning, big picture is what all can happen to stop you from running your business or going to work right now. Somebody steals your car, you can't go to work. The power's off, I can't turn on my computer. I've been ransomware, my data's gone. What am I going to do? So disaster and recovery planning is all those scenarios you can think of. We used to talk about and laugh about in tech about zombie invasions, and then we had a pandemic, so it's no longer as funny as it was before. And so DR planning, all the scenarios, what could take you out at the knees, fire, flood, whatever it is. Those are all things to consider and how you're going to recover. Back up your data. We're going to talk a bit more about backups. And then what are your recovery methods? So somebody steals your car. Okay, you're renting a car and calling your insurance company so you can go to work. If you've had a hard drive failure, we're recovering from backup. If you've got a power outage, you're working from home today. What are all your recovery methods? As you can see the picture at the bottom, really we're talking with security, and I still love that picture. But what happens when somebody steals the keys to the building? So misfortune. Sorry again? Yeah. So what's going to happen is misfortune is going to stop you from being able to run your business or go to work. And we want to plan for all of those things. So disaster plan is pretty easy. Build a playbook. Every single scenario. This is going to happen. This is a way I fix it. Pretty simple. If I've got locked out of my mailbox, what are my recovery methods for that mailbox? Research them, plan them, understand how to use them. The power's out. Maybe we're working somewhere else for the day. We got a flood in the basement. We've lost data. What are we going to do? Recover from backup. So ransomwares, fires, stolen computer, mailbox hijack. We're all using notebooks these days, so they get stolen more easily than a regular computer because they're a little easier to run away with. So all the scenarios that could take you and put you out of business, what are they? Or prevent you from going to work today? Backups are pretty simple in some ways. You need to understand where your files are. How do you back them up, or who does it for you? And how do you recover those files? So that's pretty easy. My files are on the computer. How am I going to back them up? I'm backing up to a series of memory sticks or up to the cloud or whatever. How do I recover them? I go, I open up QuickBooks. I say, recover company file and follow the bouncing balls. Rehearse it. It's a lot easier if you're rehearsing things in advance and testing that they actually work than they'd be in the middle of having a data loss and no way to recover and no idea how to do it. It's a horrible spot to be in. The large company that Delilah mentioned that was ransomware, we were called after they were ransomware, and we had about 25 computers and 6 or 7 servers. As techs, it was horrible. It's like being a paramedic and a 40-car pileup on the 401 because we couldn't help them because they didn't know what was wrong. And we didn't know their network. We called in afterwards. It was absolutely horrible. And it was traumatic for our staff. The 3-2-1 rule for backup is you need a minimum 3 copies of your backup, 2 on different formats, and 1 of them offsite all times. That's an old statement. We're going to modify it a little bit and say you need to be rotating 3 copies of backup. So I've got this week's backup, last week's, 2 weeks ago backup. Rotate a minimum of 3 because it is really horrible when your backup is unreadable. It's terrible, and I see it happen. 1 of them offsite means that copy of backup goes to work or to home or whatever in a secure way. Or at least it's attached from the computer so that when your computer gets ransomware, the backup doesn't get ransomware as well. That's a horrible spot to be in. Both the networks that Delilah talked about ransomware with, that happened to both of them. They had no backups to recover from. They might as well go out of business. And that's happened to companies. They've gone out of business because their data's gone. Big companies. So 3-2-1 rule, 3 copies your backup. Two different formats preferably, and 1 offsite at all times. Storing your data in the cloud is not a backup. You're just storing your data in a different place. And I can't tell you how many times I have to re-educate somebody on that. The cloud is not a backup. Unless you're backing your local stuff up to the cloud, and that's a different animal. But merely keeping your stuff in the cloud, it's not backed up. And the landlord, if it's Microsoft or Amazon or Google, makes no guarantees about the security of your data out there. They're not responsible for your data loss. So things to think about. Free products. We talked a bit about antivirus. I've seen super anti-spyware on computers before, and it scares the heck out of me. Free stuff. If it's free, you're the product. Somebody's slurping data out of your computer for their benefit. And free is only as good as you get, right? If you're not a mechanic, you're buying Snap-on tools, you're not buying them from Walmart for a reason, right? So free stuff, you're going to get what you pay for. So don't do it. Invest in good technology. The other one we see is everybody's into the free copies of Office or cracked copies of Office. It used to be a box copy of Office was $200, $300, $400 for a reason. There's a lot of development work in there, and they're trying to make their investment back. But you got a solid product. You buy a cracked copy of Office, and you don't know what's been added to it for software that's slurping out your data. So buy decent stuff, right? Street smarts. Delilah talked about free Wi-Fi. I'm going to say don't do it ever, period. Get hotspot your phone, get a better data plan so you can be in the middle of nowhere and run your data from your phone. And now you're never touching public Wi-Fi. You just don't know what's out there. It's just not safe. Public charging pods, don't. Bring a charger with you, bring a battery for traveling. You know, the battery packs are cheap as dirt now. Don't buy aftermarket cables, buy ones that are known brand name. Apple actually has an approval mechanism for their manufacturers of cables. So if you go and buy a StarTech cable, it's got the Apple logo on it. StarTech is a trusted vendor. In the either ends of those USB cables, you can put a chip in there as listening chips so easily, it's just scary. We're not doing video as much as I'd like to. I brought a package along with me. We've seen gift electronics come in the mail, and the one that I brought today, which I really can't show you, unfortunately, because of the setup, it came from a vendor, and you open it up and it runs a little video display for a sales pitch. It came with a battery pack. It's got a charging port on the side of it, and it's a really cool device. They spent a lot of money on it, but it's a huge security breach because now when it's on the network, if it's powered up, even if it's not connected to the network, it can have network sniffing tools in there, start discovering networks on its own automatically. And now you've got this thing in a box, battery powered, attacking a network. Or worse, the charging port to plug it into their computer. And now we've got a USB attack. So gift electronics, again, not reputable electronics, something made in China that you don't know the source of it or what's on the chips. Don't do it. Just don't. You know, you get what you pay for all of this stuff. So be street smart, be suspicious. Phone fraud, we talk about the calls from the CRA, and probably everybody's had one by today because it's afternoon. Services Canada, the bank you do business. The one that kills me, the Visa MasterCard Security Center.
He's a MasterCard, yeah.
We know the phone calls are fake, right? We know it. It's just common sense. We know the emails are fake, especially the ones now that I've seen what you've been doing on your computer. And I'm going to say, you know, I recorded a video and that one scares the heck out of seniors. We know these things are fake. Don't do it. When you get tech support, they're fake. That pop up on your screen, ransomware, your computer's been hacked, they're all fake. We're going to change this a little bit is when you look up a tech support number on Google, and if you're not paying attention and start calling that first one that says Microsoft support, you're calling back into the same call center that the Microsoft tech was calling from you in the first scenario.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Go to the vendor's site. Microsoft does not offer phone support unless you pay for it.
Right.
Don't look up tech support. Just don't. A real life story on that one. We recently had a local bookkeeper trying to troubleshoot something in QuickBooks on their own. Fairly tax savvy, smart individual. Looked up QuickBooks support, got into one of these tech call centers, and very quickly said this isn't right, and ended the call before they got on their computer. But they would have had copies of all their financial data, their passwords, everything else, and charged several $100s for the time to fix the file. The way they do it, when they charge you, you've already agreed to the services, you can't get your refund out of them. Doesn't work that way. Offer acceptance compensation, it's already there. So just don't do that. I have opinions on referral systems and business directories. There are a lot of business directories online about refer all your friends, neighbors, businesses and everything else. I don't believe them. When we're out in the GTA, and I just taught you not to listen to all these emails and crap that's coming at you. Build some local reputations and referrals for business networks. They're going to go a lot further for you. We also see fake business awards now. You've been named as one of the
Yes.
cybersecurity companies of the year.
Yeah.
Again, they're just spam. They're just trying to hook you in. I want to sell you a service that you're not ever going to benefit from. The best business directories are in your community with referral based. Absolutely, hands down over technology. Technology will not get you sales. Referrals will. Trusted referrals.
So
So-
hang on a second.
Mhm.
So I have an event coming up.
Yep.
I went on to one of the chambers of commerce, and I looked through their members list. I got
Sure.
every single member's email.
Yep.
That's not secure, right? Is that,
Well, those are published and they're published willingly, and you're getting it from a trusted source.
okay,
If we're dealing with the Belleville Chamber of Commerce here, or the Quinny West Chamber of
Right.
Commerce, those members know who the other members are. So as you as a small business center
Right.
generate leads, it's coming through a known referral system. There's no stranger danger there,
because I
right?
didn't want to upset anybody.
So, and
What's my event?
They're published with permission.
Permission.
so Nesda, 28 years. 750 clients active right now.
Wow,
We have never advertised. Everything is referral. Everything has always been.
like in the old days, my
Yep.
neighbor, my friend.
Still
my-
works. It's trusted.
Yeah, it's trusted.
So I'll cut to the chase in some of these things. Go get some good advice. Read newsletters and blogs. Video blogs are good. Find methods for information flow that work for you. Always go to the vendors support sites. They make it easy these days. Call the vendor with their support if you need help. Find good trusted advisors. It's that simple. Bob's hardware forum on the internet. Bob probably doesn't know his backside from a hole in the ground. But find the Dell site, look at filtering those things out. So get some good advice. Quick tip on e-transfers. I think everybody's finally doing this now. Set your e-transfers on your banking to auto deposit. I don't care who's sending me money. Thank you. I'll take it. What that does is completely take the password out of the equation for e-transfers.
Smart.
That's pretty simple. That also stops the bad guys from the mailbox hijacking, because that's what they're after. So set it to auto deposit, pretty simple. Reality check here on accounts. Have I Been Pawned is a site created by an individual named Troy Hunt. Troy Hunt is a Microsoft security evangelist, has been in the business forever. That guy's brilliant. He started this site on his own because the bad guys were harvesting and publishing databases of usernames and passwords for sale. So, and in some cases, public offering. So Troy got the bright idea of picking up copies of those databases and providing a lookup service based on your email address to tell you whether you've been listed in any of those databases. Down at the bottom, there's a large number there of pawned accounts, and pawning is what we call when we steal accounts. So here's the scary part. The bottom of the number, there are better than 12 billion stolen accounts out there. There's only 8 billion people on the planet.
Okay.
So have I been pawned? And you Google it, you'll see I brought the page up for reasons of people going to the right page. Again, you can just email us later and I'll happy to share the link. Put in your email addresses, all of them, one at a time, including the Hotmail account you don't use anymore. You can see whether it's listed. It's a good way to just do a quick checkup. You probably are at this point if you've got a mature email address you've been using for a few years.
And the site is legitimate. Don't stick your email address or any other information into any other site. This
Yeah.
one is.
Freepasswordlookup.com, probably bad.
Yeah.
So something to think about. They also have a password checker. That's a bit of a boundary for most people, but at least you can see that you've been identified. Something else on this topic I didn't put on my slide, that Hotmail account you've had since high school,
Mhm.
close it. You don't need it anymore. It's an emotional attachment. You're not using it. You reduce your attack surface by closing down dormant accounts. You don't need them. It's just
Yeah,
a
don't
lot
link it
safer.
to your now
Yeah, so
account,
just
right?
think about that. But what we want to do for all of your accounts is make sure that your attack surface is reduced. We want you to secure them properly. No software can do that for you. You have to do that on your own. So make sure your accounts are credible, your passwords are good. Make sure you're using multi-factor authentication, and you're taking a moment of sober thought before you act when you get an MFA prompt or you've got the clues that you've somehow been breached. Stop and do that. No software can fix that for you. So your homework, again, go to work on your accounts. Check to see if they're compromised or not. Doesn't matter if they are, as long as you're changing passwords and doing things right going forward. Use unique passwords on every single account. Don't reuse a password even once. Make sure your passwords are complex. Get an inventory going of your accounts, and part of your disaster recovery plan should be a list of all of your accounts, all of your recovery methods, what those accounts entail. So the online services account, in a proper disaster recovery plan for a larger business, you've got the binder that when things hit the fan, what you're going to do. And one of those is the contact information for the gas company, so you can shut off the gas on the building. Everything needs to be inventoried and documented. What you have, an entire list of your accounts. Mine's a 2-inch thick 3-ring binder now,
Wow.
personally, because I've been working on that project of documenting those to see how big it was in the first place. But there's a big stack of paper there now. So get MFA on every single account, period. Work on your disaster recovery plan. Get your backups rolling, the 3-2-1 method again. Change your e-transfers to auto deposit for the free money that bad guys might send you by accident. Get on the newsletters, blogs that fit your interests, and read. Become better educated about all of this, because you're the one that has to protect you. This is all on you to do that. That's a lot of information that kind of squeezed into our 2-hour time frame from the pickup end. Cybersecurity@nesda.ca. Email us anything. We're happy to give you advice on at least tell you, where you should go or what you should look at from here.
And this email address comes directly to Bruce and I.
Yep.
So if you've got any questions, we'll be the ones that will know what you're asking, because we know that you took part in the
Yep.
in the presentation.
Well, thank you so.
Thank you very much.
I absolutely can't believe the password complexity thing is just ingrained into me now, and I just I want to hurry up and get on my computer, and I hope all of you do the same and really take this stuff to heart and protect yourself. You are the CEO of your technology, so give Bruce and Delilah a call, or like they said, do your research and research. Try and figure out what's best for you. Be smart, be safe. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you again.
I want to say thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
You like my point about insurance companies and homes?
Well,